At the core of mainstream macroeconomic modeling sits a theoretical agent, Homo economicus. This diagram represents the standard macroeconomic feedback loop. It operates on two foundational assumptions about human behavior. Human wants are infinite, and agents operate purely on rational self-interest. As the model accelerates to satisfy these wants, the system mathematically dictates perpetual expansion over systemic balance. Defining wants as limitless forces the equation to require endless extraction. The axioms calculate a trajectory ending in runaway accumulation and environmental overshoot. Recent heterodox research dismantles the structure. By applying the framework of moral economics, researchers strip away the old axioms to rebuild models from first principles. In place of infinite wants, the framework substitutes finite needs. In place of pure self-interest, it inserts rational selflessness. When the underlying assumptions of a model change, the entire mathematical trajectory of human survival must be recalculated. The concept of the moral economy originates in the study of pre-industrial agricultural societies by historians like Carl Polanyi and James C. Scott. In these communities, economic transactions were embedded within social relationships. Participants relied on reciprocity as a form of distributed subsistence insurance. Mainstream economists frequently categorize this dynamic as an anthropological artifact. Updating this logic, however, provides a rigorous parameter for modern macroeconomics. Traditional models often lean on Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a structure frequently interpreted to suggest that human desires scale endlessly upward. This visualizes Manfred Max Neef's theory, categorizing fundamental human needs into a bounded matrix. These specific needs are satiable, possessing a hard mathematical limit. Because individual needs are finite, the aggregate of human needs scales in a predictable, linear line against population size. Proving mathematically that needs are finite establishes an exact point of economic satiation. It removes the mandate for infinite growth. Operating under the outdated assumption of infinite wants produces a systemic paradox, runaway accumulation. A materialist system structurally propels capital socially upstream toward the top of the economic hierarchy. It generates massive output, yet leaves severe deficits at the basic needs threshold. This deprivation creates a psychological feedback loop. When resources become available, it triggers extreme compensatory overconsumption. This reactionary spike in consumption is then measured by neoclassical models as proof that human desires are naturally infinite. The political and institutional architecture of the late 20th century codified this assumption of pure self-interest into deregulatory policy. Economists like Nobel laureate Amartya Sen countered this framework, demonstrating that human behavior operates on a measurable plurality of motivations. Runaway accumulation acts as a structural inefficiency. It forces the economy into a continuous cycle of overconsumption. Fixing this inefficiency requires introducing a second variable, the innate human need to help others. This isn't an altruistic anomaly or a charitable exception. It functions as a baseline economic driver. We define this parameter as rational selflessness, a state where economic institutions actively reward cooperative distribution rather than penalizing it. This coordinate plane illustrates the effect. Applying rational selflessness as a mathematical factor acts as a direct multiplier on economic output. Acts of sharing and reciprocating fulfill needs directly. As the multiplied output expands, the total volume of raw material production required drops. It functions as a systemic clearing mechanism. Satisfying needs without excess extraction increases the efficiency of the entire economy. Rational selflessness operates as a hard mathematical force. It maximizes the yield of existing output. Standard neoclassical models calculate output in a vacuum, ignoring the absolute physical constraints of thermodynamics and planetary ecology. Early conservationists like Rachel Carson established the parameters for these limits, mapping the true boundaries of the economy of nature. Plotting population against resources establishes the linear needs aggregate. Mainstream assumptions dictate an exponential economic output curve. The absolute physical constraint is this horizontal ceiling, Earth's carrying capacity. The collision is immediate. The exponential output curve, driven by infinite wants, violently breaches the planetary threshold. Without re-axiomatizing human desires as finite, Standard models mathematically guarantee ecological collapse. To calculate a viable alternative, we combine finite needs, the selflessness multiplier, and environmental limits into a single framework. This generates the moral economic synthesis. We begin with a blank coordinate plane. We plot the linear, satiable needs aggregate curve. Above it, we draw the firm horizontal ceiling of the environmental carrying capacity. We plot the output curve next. Factoring in objective technological levels and the rational selflessness multiplier flattens the previously exponential trajectory into an S-shaped curve. This establishes a dynamic equilibrium. The S-shaped output curve perfectly intersects and satisfies the needs aggregate entirely below the environmental ceiling. Lowering the Gini coefficient, reducing macroeconomic inequality, locks this exact intersection point into place. Incorporating ethics into macroeconomic equations provides a rigorous structural requirement for maintaining human survival within planetary limits.